Welcome. This is Victoria Rumble Room. I'm Robin Adair, and we're going to dig into the issues here that have been on the front pages and on all the media outlets in Greater Victoria. With me, John Jurisic.
Robin, thank you. Ben, have there been a lot of things to get anxious and angry and frustrated about? I can't believe it. On top of that, I had a sort of a house weekend from hell. It turns out rats decided to invade my barbecue. It turns out my dishwasher decided to leak into my basement. And my lawnmower decided to not work anymore. So, you know what? On top of all the global and community issues, I got a lot of stuff at home going. So I'm rumbling today, okay? Just warning you.
We're going to have to sort of take up some sort of a fundraising to try to help you out on this, John.
So, a GoFundMe page.
A GoFundMe page. Hey, John, I'm pretty mad about this guy who held up the ferry on its way over to Vancouver, and he wouldn't wear a mask. They had to turn the boat around, take him back to Victoria, and all he gets slapped with is a $460 fine. I just think there's got to be stronger measures than that. If people want to be able to take strong stands on this issue, that's fine. But to hold up a whole ferry and inconvenience and maybe even endanger a lot of other fellow passengers is just irresponsible.
A year ago when this started, I felt that people were in control. The regulators were managing the situation and ultimately protecting us. And now that we're a year later into this third wave, I feel the complete opposite. I feel this is out of control, and I feel boneheads like this fellow on the ferry. If you don't want to wear a mask, fine. Go to a park and sit by yourself. Don't go onto a ferry where you quite possibly could infect everybody. And on top of that, you're belligerent, angry, and cause the ferry to turn around. I just thought about that if I was on there, how angry I would be about that. He just has to put on a mask.
I just think
like all of the provisions aren't working.
We could throw the book and the message would be out. I mean, I'm not saying throw the guy in jail for a week, but I do think the fine should be a little bit bigger than $460, just a slap on the wrist. To me, that was really egregious behavior.
People are traveling all over the place. They are seemingly ignoring Bonnie Henry's and Adrian Dix's requests. I don't know what has there been an instance in our lifetime where there's policy like this that's happened? Like, I don't know what to refer to say what this is the right plan. Do you?
And if we have another short snapper, John, it's just the panic you can feel setting in with this Brazil variant.
Yes.
And the fact that COVID is really on the rise, even on Vancouver Island.
Yeah.
And people are looking over their shoulders saying, when can I get my shot? Do I qualify for the AZ shot you can get right now at the drugstore? Do I even want that? I mean, how soon can I do something about this? Because I'm seeing this virus growing around me, and there's a bit of a panic.
I think it's more than a bit. And like I said, whereas a year ago, even 9 months ago, there was some confidence that the government would actually manage this. That is not the case. It feels like we're on this on our own, Rob.
Well, I mean, we got the AstraZeneca, and some people can get that. And I had a friend who just sent me an email this morning telling me that he managed to get his shot, and he's in his early 60s, and he's feeling much relieved. It's a lower percentage of protection. I believe it's only in the 60 percentile. But if you get COVID and you've had that vaccine, you only feel like you've had a minor cold. And if you get the other vaccines, it's up to 93% effective. So I think we're all just dying to get in line and get our shots.
Yeah, and get rid of these boneheads that don't want to play like the rest of us. I don't. Yeah,
and I guess
this was a good short snapper.
The final short snapper bonehead comment. I guess it still has to do with the COVID pandemic. For all these people coming over to Vancouver Island on the weekend and zipping out to Tofino. I mean, don't do unnecessary trips. This is serious. This is dangerous. And a lot of people just seem to think, oh, well, I guess that applies to everybody else.
Right. And and huge lineups along the road, and people everywhere, and they're not wearing masks, at least according to the news media that I saw. Something's missing here. There's a disconnect between what we're being asked to do and what we're doing, and nobody is dealing with that disconnect. And I hope that happens this week. I know you encourage us not to time our sessions, but we're in a period where there needs to be some discipline and consequence to not following these societal protections.
We've done so well for a whole year.
Mm-hmm.
We're really getting close. You can just see the finish line. Let's not stumble. Let's get across the finish line. Let's get our shots, and let's let this virus pass us.
Absolutely, Robin.
Now we're going to move on now to our special guest, and we're pretty excited about this. Of course, this was the top story going on for ages about the camping in parks and all the stuff going on downtown, and the danger for people to go shopping, and it's still a big story. So we don't want to set that aside. We've talked a little bit about the vaccine. Let's move now to what's been going on in the city and policing. And joining us, a special guest, is the executive member who heads the Victoria City Police Union, Matt Waterman, who has been a serving officer in Victoria for 30 years. He has a rank of staff sergeant, and we're really pleased to have him come on and talk about the issues.
Well, good morning, Matt Waterman. Thank you so much for coming on to the Victoria Rumble Room. You look fantastic.
Well,
and I
thanks,
just
John.
love
for inviting me.
Hey, you bet.
I didn't mean to dress up so nicely, but it just happened to be I figure it was Tuesday. Let's do it today.
Yeah, fantastic. No, you look great. And I look great, and Robin looks okay.
Well, thanks, John. Thanks very much for that.
Yeah, so supportive. So, Matt, why don't we dig into this? First of all, can you just tell us your role and who you represent, please, so that frames the discussion.
Yeah, so just for everyone's awareness, I've been employed with the Victoria City Police Department for 30 years. My current position is staff sergeant in charge of the patrol division. But today I'm here representing the Victoria City Police Union. I'm on the executive. I've been on the executive for the past 15 years. We play an important role supporting our members, of which, as the frontline police officers and the jail guards that work in the building here. So, the things that happen in Victoria and Esquimalt affect our members on a daily basis. So we've kind of taken on a point of view that we think we should be more engaged in the community with things that are going on.
Well, I just as a matter of principle, I'm a huge supporter of police people.
Yeah.
And I've had many friends. And as soon as the uniform comes off, people, they're just normal people. That they're mothers and fathers and coaches and business owners and they're just like the rest of us. And it really, really annoys me that sometimes they're just sort of lumped into this generalization. So I'm really glad that you're here. Tell us, sort of generally speaking, from your point of view, what is the community's perspective on how you guys or your organization is dealing with crime, and is the legislative bodies or boards how are they perceiving that? Are you both aligned, or somebody thinking it's soft or hard? Or tell us a little bit about these perceptions.
Good question, John. I think most of our members, they probably joined the job thinking they were going to arrest criminals and send people to jail. I can tell you without a word of a lie, pretty much it's hard to put someone in jail nowadays. And that's changed since I started in policing. And, I don't know what to blame that on, but if somebody asked me, do I think the world has gone soft on crime? I would say sometimes, yes. So it can be a little frustrating when, people are, sure, I'm the first to advocate for people to get an alternative way to get their crime dealt with. I'm a big fan of restorative justice. There's a number of other methods that are used. We have a community court here in Victoria, which does a good job dealing with people who are in, kind of the mental health side of the world. And, those are important factors. But I also feel like there's a point where our citizens are kind of stunned by how much crime and violence there can be in your community and not have a voice to say, hey, wait a second, why do we keep talking about no funding for the police and defunding the police, or just out and out ignoring the police board when it says, hey, we need 4 new officers? That, to me, that's not acceptable, and it doesn't correlate between more violence in the city and let's get less police.
I think it's 90% of the budget of the city is taken up with police and fire. So it's a huge part of the expenditure every year by a city. And so sometimes when they're looking to move money around or move money into other areas, like social work, like social agencies, like some of the things they've been trying to do with the homeless, they look with a hard look at how much budget has been going to police and fire. And I would imagine, Matt, that you think that's wrongheaded.
Well, no, you know what, Robin, there's a side of me that says policing is expensive, and I'll be the first one to agree with that. There's also a side of me over the last 15 years that I've noticed where the efforts to try and reassign where funding should go has not been successful either, in that, quit giving the police more duties that are social work related. And so if there was a new model to get police out of mental health or get police out of social work, that's a narrative that's often used. I'd actually love to engage in that discussion and say, okay, well, what's your solution? Because if you don't have a solution and you need the police, then you need to pay for the police to be there.
So they're in Vancouver. They've had this Car 87 program where an officer has been attached to a healthcare nurse or a mental health care professional and gone out. And in Victoria, we've had the assertive community treatment program now for a while. We've been leading the country in some of this work already. Why doesn't that work the way we need it to?
Well, I would say it's working when they're working, but those teams aren't working 24 hours a day. That becomes the other side of the issue. So then we're reduced to only the emergency responding police officers that are available at that time to help deal with those issues. So, can we expand those programs to be 24 hours a day? I would advocate for that, and I think our members would like being part of that. I mean, you're only speaking to me today, but I would implore you at some point to speak with some of the VHA nurses or mental health social workers who are working on those teams as well, to get their perspective on the value of the police being involved in those teams, because I think it's fantastic.
There are actually, in my opinion, two parts of this question that seems to be on the minds of folks in the community. That being, do we need more police people and more police funding and protection? And then secondly, what are they doing when they're doing their job? I am firmly in support of more police and more funding. This is the fabric of a democratic society. It is not what some crazy people think is moving to autocracy, or nobody's doing that. Nobody is doing that anywhere in this region. Do I see a active, objective debate on what the roles are? Yes. When Robin and I were within the chamber system, an ecosphere, so to speak, our meetings would start at 7 a.m. in the morning. Police people were coming around and removing homeless people from business alcoves. Okay, if there's no one else, I get it.
Right.
But that doesn't entirely seem to be a police role. That would be something that we could talk about. Maybe that's a better role for a social worker or a mental health professional with some safety support.
Could be dangerous though, John.
Well, could be, but then there could be a police, like you just indicated in Vancouver, maybe a model where there's a police person watching, but there wasn't. They were doing it.
Yeah.
So there's two pieces. And I think they're getting meshed into into some political muck, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it's too bad the political side of it's getting involved when, I think people understand that the police have a role, and so do some of these other agencies. And there's a really big push in Victoria specifically for bylaw to assist in a number of these areas. And I'm in support of that. And they're becoming a really good tool to be able to interject in some of those situations. But, I can think back to a story, I think it was 15 years ago that I remember, where all of a sudden the police were being asked to basically be the alarm clock of anyone living in the streets. And I was like, well, wait a second. When you talk about funding for the police, why are we doing this? Like, isn't there a more efficient way for the homeless or someone living in the streets to be woken up in the morning?
Yes, there must be.
If we're going to pay a police officer, you would have saved a lot more money by buying smartphones with an alarm system on them. But it wouldn't. I couldn't believe it when we started doing it. And to be honest, we're still doing it. And in fact, we're still doing it in some cases, like you said, Robin, because there's actually a safety factor when even bylaws go into some of the parks or wherever.
So, Matt, do you think that downtown Victoria is as dangerous as some people are saying? And do you think that it's a one-size-fit-all problem in the sense that we've got people that are criminals, we have people that are mentally ill, we have people that are just transients, but they're all lumped in together? And how are the police supposed to sort that out?
Yeah, one-size-fits-all problem, but I would argue that the way the political side of the world thinks is there's a one-size-fits-all solution. And that's the problem, is I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all solution. And for us to stick handle through that, that's why I think it's important for the police to be engaged in all of these solutions, because we have a firsthand coalface opinion that I think bears listening to. Our people are the ones that are working in the streets and the parks and so on a daily basis. And I can tell you that on behalf of all of our members, you think back, 2020 was not an easy year to be a police officer. And so it's important that we be engaged in these potential solutions, and I want to advocate for that.
Your members must be worried about getting into these parks and moving people. We're looking at the 1st of May to have everybody out of the parks and into housing of some sort. I can remember a few years ago when there was a tent city set up behind the courthouse, and a couple of police officers went in there and actually got attacked. And it's again a very dicey situation. You got to be sensitive to the people that are actually homeless and legitimately need help. You got students in there, you've got activists, and you've got real criminals. And it's really a landmine. And just to send a social worker in just isn't going to do the trick.
No, and so officer safety is always a concern for the police. Having said that, our people are pretty well trained. They understand how to avoid risk. How to talk to people is also important. And I think we've done a pretty good job at that. But there's always going to be the chance that a police officer is going to be assaulted or anyone else. But again, it goes to the point that we should be there. We shouldn't be, asked not to be there. It just doesn't make sense. So let's talk about that. Let's be engaged in making sure that we are part of this discussion about how we're gonna come around to, arguably getting people off the streets. And we've been big advocates from the beginning that, we can maybe take some people off the street, but what else are we doing for them? Because there's some pretty long-term social and personal issues behind a lot of the what's going on in their world, right?
Yeah, and we've had a speaker or two speak to that directly. Robin has offered solutions to once a person off the streets is mobilized into a hotel room, that's not where the care ends.
Yeah.
So it should be starting there.
Right.
And I'm curious, Matt, what do you think about this redistribution of these folks, these homeless people, into these different housing developments around the city? There's going to be one in Vic West. There's going to be one in Fernwood. They're going to be all over the place. And is that going to be easier to police? Is it going to be trickier to look after that when people are dispersed like that? What are your feelings around this new strategy?
Yeah, you know what? I don't know if I have a personal opinion about, where they should all be but I do know that wherever there is a facility, there should be some support nearby.
Right.
And there also should be, like, let's not fool ourselves. This business of housing the homeless and homelessness in general is a massive industry, of which the police get arguably very little funding compared to the other supports that are in place.
Right.
So, at some point, I would just want to argue for having sustainable support around anywhere where there's some supportive housing. What I'm most concerned though about, Robin, most of the time is that the facility is too big. I remember Don Evans saying this back with the Our Place Society, where he advocated for 30-ish people at the most in any one facility, that trying to put too many in one facility was just a disaster waiting to happen. And I believe him, and I still would advocate the same sort of smaller numbers with support. And yes, the police need to be aware of what's going on there. And I think we need to have some input into that. We do have that working knowledge of most of these people, and we can sort of say, hey, you can't put Mary in with John because John assaulted Mary last week.
Right. I have a question, Robin. It's not on our list. My apologies, sir. But I want to humanize this a little bit. So recently, I had occasion to be able to take a lot of clothing and excess clothing, etc., down to Our Place, and my wife and I did, and we bring it in, and this, of course, is where many of the homeless live and occupy, and it's very upsetting. It's very upsetting. The 10 or 15 minutes it took me to take these bags in of excess clothing, I left upset. How that was 10 minutes. Your folks are dealing with this day and night. I don't know if you're necessarily trained for this, but you're living this within this difficult environment all the time. And how are they dealing with it? How is the morale amongst your members? Not only are they having to deal with this, in some cases they might not be entirely trained, nor they should be, and then in some instances being criticized by parts of our society. How does that work out? How are they doing?
That's a good point, John. I would be the first to say our people are well trained.
Yes.
I'd also would highlight the fact that our people are well recruited. I don't know if that's an actual term, but we look for people with good character. We want people to be members of the community. Me personally, I'm born and raised in Victoria, Greater Victoria, obviously, but I think that we need to have this people of strong character and willingness to work in the community and deal with these issues. That's not to say that we won't have people who will get disgruntled and be angry about what's going on, but we also know that, hey, this is a difficult job. You get paid to do this difficult job, so and if you need help, then that's fine. You can reach out, but I think that's as the union's gone the last few years, we want to advocate for the humanity behind each of our people, right? And because we think we've got a number of fantastic people who the general public will never hear about, and we spent a lot of time recently kind of trying to expand on that and make sure that people understand that the members behind the badge are are good people and have good intentions.
And they're family people. And they're, like I said at the beginning of the show, they're just they're amongst all of us, dealing with the same stuff we're all dealing with. And I don't think it often, and rightly so, policemen, firemen, our hospital workers, they are perceived as heroes, as they are.
Right.
But then along with the hero badge comes, this invincibility. And we mustn't forget that they're just humans. So if Robin's so inclined, I'd love to have every maybe quarter, maybe we can have another individual and just talk to them about that you pick and just say, hey, how are things, Joe or Jane?
Yeah. And you know what? As the union, we've tried to do a better job of putting those stories out about our people, and this is another example of a good way to get to know some of our people and some of the frontline people working in the streets with the homeless or with mental health. Most people have no idea how good they are at their job and how much they care, and that's an important message to get out there.
So are we moving in the right direction, Matt? Or are we going to have a safer Victoria because of the steps that have been taken? A lot of money's being spent to rehouse the homeless. And I know you've met with the Attorney General, David Eby, and talked to him about what needs to happen. He's made noises about maybe the need for institutions again for some people that are seriously mentally ill and have been left on the street. And of course, on top of all of this, we've got this terrible epidemic of COVID. And there's methamphetamine, and there's also opioids, and we have all these things sort of jumping on top of just the day-by-day work you have to do as a policeman. Do you think we're moving towards a safer Victoria?
Well, you just lumped in about 32 different things there. I have to admit, I've always had hope that we can make it a safe place to be, and the new. A couple of years ago, the Victoria City Police Union engaged in some rebranding, and we wanted to make General Victoria, a safe place to work, a safe place to visit, and a safe place to party. It all should be a safe environment for all of those things to happen. And, but we can't ignore the issues that are out there. And as you said about David Eby, for example, as part of our union role is to lobby the provincial government for certain things to make sure that, the police aren't being forgotten about, the conditions of work and how funding's important and so on. So we're going to continue to do that. We've made a point of wanting to speak to both Victoria and Esquimalt Council because they're our bosses, and we want to make sure that they understand that Victoria City Police, our members, need their support as well.
So are we going to be safer?
Well, yeah. I mean, we're going to do everything we can. We would love to have everyone on the same page and make sure that this is a safe place. If the narrative of defund the police or eliminate the police wins the day, that's not going to work.
It just can't. And I think that's a massively minority or singular opinion. That is just total BS.
Yeah.
I would think that to have the city safe, sorry, Robin, I'm tangenting here, is a collective community solution. And you guys are one variable, the proverbial guys. You're one variable to that. Others have to understand the issues that are going on in our community for the police to be able to do their job. That means everyone must understand these mission critical problems so that they get what role you play. You can't be just left along on your own.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why, thanks to you guys for doing things like this, because that's what we think. We need to get out there more and say that, there's more to the solution than just and being against the police. That's not going to work. Right? Yeah.
But we're not against the police. we'll give you one more quick word here, Matt, maybe on how you feel the average policeman's feeling right now about this next couple of months. Do you think your members are ready for it? The clearing of the parks, this new reality with the housing, are your guys sort of prepared for this, or are they having a lot of internal meetings on next steps? I mean, what's the atmosphere right now at the Victoria Police?
Well, I think we're up for the challenge, Robin. It's daunting when you don't know what the outcome will be, or you know, even this morning, some of our members are like, geez, haven't heard yet. You know, apparently emergency services are going to get a vaccine. That becomes an issue, and we all have families to go to. Basically, we're the type of people who go into everyone else's homes and have to deal with issues. I'm sure people would like to see us vaccinated as well. And you know, all of a sudden, we're dealing with people out in the world who they themselves are already been vaccinated, and okay, that's great, thank you, but we still haven't been, so you know, we're still concerned.
That makes no sense to me whatsoever, that you folks aren't on the front line getting vaccinated.
And I think we're going to get there. It's just a case of, you know, what's going to help make our members more prepared to deal with the next couple of months, right? And that's one of them. And I think as we move forward and we see the challenges of getting everybody out of the parks and getting them into homes, and we're prepared. We're ready to be part of that solution. And I know our people who worked in the mental health side and the community resource officers, those people are doing it every day, day in and day out, and they're probably the most at risk of being burned out. But you know, all we need is a little bit of support from, and I mean vocal support, you know, and we're going to challenge councils and politicians to come forth and provide that vocal support behind what the police have to help with here. And because it's not acceptable just to say, sorry, we're not going to give you 2 more officers. You don't need 2 more officers. Yeah. You know, because arguably we're arguing about 1 or 2 officers, but I can tell you that I think we're 20 or 30 short.
Totally. Totally.
And we would do much better with properly resourced force.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Matt Waterman. That was really great information from the Victoria Police and the Victoria City Police Union, and lots to digest. Coming up next week, another great guest, Christine Willow, who is the chair of the Victoria Harbour Authority, is going to be in the studio to talk to us about what's going on with the cruise ships. They're not going to be here this summer. Will they come back next year? What else is being done to get the whole harbor going and active, and the tourism industry moving? Right now, of course, we're in a lull because we're in a partial shutdown again, and restaurants are suffering. But how do we get back on our feet? Can we do it quickly this summer? And Christine Willow will be here to really talk a lot about the different aspects of the tourist industry and what has to happen to revitalize that sector in Victoria.
I can't wait for that show, Robin. That's a great summary. Boy, that's a big topic. And just fingers crossed that tourism and hospitality are going to rebound at some point this year. Oh, my Lord.
Let's hope.
We've been getting a lot of interest in these programs, Robin. Like what? Did you expect that a month ago? Like we were doing this for fun. And this all of a sudden got some really amazing momentum. Clearly, it's my personality. Clearly. So if you want to access our show, there's several ways to do that. First of all, our Facebook page, Victoria Rumble Room, search for that. The address is still very long, but we've got about 250 people who are liking our page. That way you get updated specifically when we post an episode, as we will be with Matt this Thursday. And then there's a YouTube site in which we post all these. And that is also Victoria Rumble Room with Robin and John. Please search for that. Consider subscribing. And so those are the key ways. This week, we also launched our Twitter page, which is at Victoria Rumble Room. And search for that. Please consider following. We're going to be posting links from all of our episodes on there as well. So we're really proliferating. I mean, soon we're going to take over the world. Are we not close to there already, Robin?
Well, I mean, I guess your world, John.
Right. So anyway, this is it for another, what I consider to be very exciting Victoria Rumble Room. I am John Jurisic.
And I'm Robin Adair, and rumble on.